Okay.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and we are so excited to have you join us for our first series and first session within our webinar series called Investing in God and it Equals Investing in You. Investing in God is our theme for Pilgrim for this year. And we wanted to take that a little bit further. So what we've decided for this month of February, every week we will have a session that talks about something that will invest in yourself and improving yourself, so you will be able to improve your relationship with God. So we are so excited for our first presenter that has decided to come and talk to us. Most of you may know him. He is one of our own. He is the son of our very own assistant pastor, Reverend Rose Dean. But beyond being her son, he is an accomplished young man himself. He's going to talk to us a bit about changing your mindset about embracing uncertainty and taking that uncertainty and making a better version of who you are financially, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So what we have with us today is Chris Dean. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about Chris. He is a native of Summit, New Jersey. Some of you may know him, have seen him grow up, be part of the Summit high school football team. A star is right there, but not just an athlete, but also an academic scholar as well. He was a recipient of the scholarship from the Jackie Robinson Foundation. Now he is on the board of that organization. So that's a way of him giving back to what was given to him. He is also has had an established career since graduating with a degree in economics. He is now with this Senator Investment Group, where he is a senior asset trader, a senior cross asset trader. And he's had other various roles in different financial companies. So he definitely can give us some good advice on finances, hopefully. As well as he is the proud father of 3 beautiful children with his wife, Jade. So Chris, we are so excited to have you, so excited to hear the message that you would like to share with everyone. The stage is yours.
Great, thank you, Connie. I appreciate it. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So once again, I appreciate, it's great to be here. Great to be able to speak with you guys. I appreciate you thinking of me for this opportunity, Pastor Allen. It's just a great situation. I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys. So once again, I do have, kind of a message or some points I would like to share with you, but I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So I will speak for a bit in the beginning, but I'd love it, if you guys have questions, if things pop up, feel free to ask. I don't know if you want to drop it in the text area or we can speak about it afterwards, but I think that whether it's, I'll speak about certain things, but I can cover a variety of things. If you want to talk about investing, you want to talk about GameStop, I'm sure that, or whatever's going on, we can talk about any of those things or career stuff. So feel free to, ask whatever you would like to talk about.
Right. So I'd like to ask if people could put their questions in the chat so that you don't lose them and Chris doesn't lose his train of thought, but we will also open it up for you to ask questions as well. But if there's things that are popping your mind while he's speaking, definitely feel free to write them in the chat.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. So the topic for today's discussion is investing in you, embracing uncertainty. Investing in you, embracing uncertainty. So this pandemic has been challenging. It's been difficult for probably most of us for a variety of reasons, right? But I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to discuss, why the pandemic is difficult or attempt to quantify how challenging it has been for any of us, just because I don't feel like that's a very good use of time. I just don't think it's worthwhile. I think that if any of us want to do that, we can probably log on to social media or we can take a look at the news, because the news cycle, that's all anyone wants to discuss 24 hours a day is how trying these times have been the last, all of 2020 or during this pandemic, right? But what I would like to do for you this evening is attempt to present you with some sort of framework that will allow you to, let's think about actually embracing this uncertainty, embracing this opportunity, viewing it as an opportunity, and turning what one can consider to have been a negative past year or so and turn that into a positive, right? Thinking about ways to actually come out of this pandemic better off, better situated than you were, and that you ever could have conceived of yourself being prior to coming in, right? Like, let's figure out ways to embrace this uncertainty. So what is this particular framework? What is this magical framework that I speak of? If you were looking to embrace uncertainty and to thrive during troubling times, I think you need to do the following three things, right? So the first thing I think you guys need to do is you need to remember where your help comes from. I think this will kind of resonate with a few of y'all here. I think that some of y'all will know what I'm talking about when I say remember where your help comes from. But the first thing I think you need to do is remember where your help comes from. The second thing that I think you will need to do is you will need to begin to participate in your own deliverance. So participating in your own deliverance. And number three on our list today, when we're thinking about embracing uncertainty, is that you will need to at times recognize that you're just going to have to give yourself grace, right? There will be times where you just have to give yourself grace. So that's remembering where your help comes from, participating in your own deliverance, and realizing that there will be times where you just simply have to give yourself grace. So let's unpack that first one. So one of my, and I have to start here because, this is where we are. I think one of my favorite scriptures personally is Psalms 121. So I think that some of y'all may know that one in this room. It's a very popular one. There's a couple songs based on it, notably My Help. And there's another one, Total Praise, which everyone likes. Everyone loves that song. There's some great ones that I listen to pretty frequently. I find myself with my kids when they're acting bad. I'm wondering, I need some help. So I'm calling on somebody. I need some sort of help here because it's getting crazy here. So these are things that come up. But My Help, Psalm 121 goes something, and I'm not going to exegete the whole thing, but Psalms 121 goes something along the lines of, I will lift up my eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He said he will not suffer thy foot to be moved. The Lord will keep it. And it keeps going on like that, right? So I think that this is a very important, and I will touch base on a few lines from it. The psalmist starts off by saying, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help, right? My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. So this person knows where their help comes from, right? There are difficult times, there are trying times, but this person has a base and a core, and they know exactly where their help comes from, right? They know where their power comes from. They know when they're enduring difficult times who they need to call on, right? It then goes on to say, he will not suffer thy foot to be moved. And what he means by that is that, we serve a God that can prevent us from falling, can prevent us from slipping, can keep us on the right path when things get cloudy, when things get uncertain, when things get difficult, when things get tough. We have someone in our corner who can keep us steady, right? No matter what we're enduring, we can be made steady, right? And I think that that's powerful as well. And in the final part of that stanza, he says that he will not slumber nor sleep. So that just kind of speaks to the fact that we serve a God who is more powerful than us, who's bigger than us, who's not human, who's not one of us, right? So I felt like I needed to start that way because I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we serve an awesome God. So when we're talking about turning positives into negatives and enduring difficult situations, I think it's important for us in pandemic, right, to realize that we have a God where if you have a new job, you have a God who can help you find a new job when you've lost one, right? Who can send you a financial blessing just when you need one, right? We have a God who, if you have an ailment, if you are ailing, if you are inflicted, you can be healed, and he can also prevent you from having that, right? So I think that that's powerful. I think you have to start there before you kind of go any further. I think you need to operate as if you have some wind behind your back, right? Like you need to operate as if things are probably going to work in your favor. And I think that having that mindset, having that shift in your mindset, and I hope that all of us already do, right? I'm preaching to the choir. I hope that all of us already do, that when you see things going sour, when you see things going south, operating, if you know that you can kind of laugh things off because you know that in the end of the day, it's going to work out for me. I think that's pretty powerful, right? I think that's a pretty powerful mindset to approach. So I think that the first thing, once again, that I wanted to tell you guys is that we need to remember where help comes from if we're going to look to try to start embracing this thing and moving forward. So the second thing I wanted to mention is that we need to begin to participate in our own deliverance. So what do I mean by that? So we all in this particular room, we know that God is good. We know that God is powerful. But I think that we also need to provide him some assistance, right? That's my belief, at least. I think we need to give him something to work with, right? I think it's great to pray for a financial blessing, but how about we impact that ourselves, right? So I want to spend a little bit of time here and try to kind of get to some meat and try to figure out ways that we can kind of do this, right? Because I think that that would be helpful here. So last year, many of us, in our congregation, whether it's us or not, we lost jobs. We were furloughed. People took pay cuts. People experienced a tremendous amount of difficulty from an employment perspective. Employment reached almost 20% in the United States, right? So that's 1 in 5 people almost were unemployed. And, we received some stimulus checks, but, that's not going to last forever. And it sounds great at first, but, that's not going to maintain it, right? And some of us are working in areas of employment where we don't know that those fields are ever even going to come back, right? Certain service industries and restaurants and things of that nature, where we don't know what it will ever look like, right? So there's significant uncertainty as far as what our job prospects will look like going forward. So what do we do about that? How do we participate in our own delivery? I think that one of the major benefits of this pandemic, one of the major positives, is the technological advancements. Everything is online now. There's so much access now, more than there ever was. And, I think one of the other major benefits is we have a little bit more time, right? Like for those of you, and some might be looking at me saying, like, I don't have more time. Look, I done lost my job. I got 3 kids. They wake up at 6 and they go to sleep at 9. It's crazy all day long. But I would argue that at the very least, you probably are not going out as much. You probably are not hanging out with friends as much. They're probably, and that can be a negative, but let's take it as a positive for this moment here, for these few minutes. And you might have some incremental time that you can utilize to actually participate in your own delivery, to invest in you, right? So what does that look like as it pertains to jobs, right? Let's focus on making ourselves more marketable. If you didn't finish high school, you can do GRE online, right? Like if you didn't go to college or you didn't finish, you can do college online. They were already online universities, but half of the major universities now are offering everything fully online, right? This is new and this is unique to this environment that we're in right now. It's a unique opportunity. Say you want to do something on the side. A lot of people talk about investing in real estate and stuff. You can get your real estate license. My wife got her real estate license online, took all classes, took exams online, right? Like you can do this stuff now. That wasn't offered prior to this. If you are someone who's more advanced in your career, I don't care if you're 20 to 70, like you can always make more money. How about getting a raise in your job? How about, getting a promotion? How about, like switching jobs into a career that you are more passionate about? For all of these things, you need to figure out ways to make yourself more marketable, right? And how do you do that? How about going back to school, getting a master's or an MBA? All of that is online now. Certification, some sort of certificate, that stuff is online. You can do everything online with this newfound time that you have. I don't care if it's an extra 20 minutes a day that you're not commuting, or for those that are, that you are just not spending as much going out because you can't anymore because there's curfews and such. How about we spend a little bit of that time investing in ourselves, right? Participating in our own delivery. Like let's pray. Like I do want you to pray to God for that financial blessing, but how about we be our own financial blessing, right? Like what's wrong with that? Let's give him something to work with, right? Like, and look, I dwell on, we're going to cover, I'm going to briefly touch on a couple different things, but, I do work in a field where finances is the focus. So that's a focus of mine. But I do think that finances are important, right? For all of us. Like we all have passions, and mining, the pursuit of money can be viewed as a negative, but money can do a lot of great things, right? Like it's beneficial. It keeps us healthy. We can be healthier we can help others. And it's just a benefit to actually be financially stable. So I think it's worthwhile for it to be focused. And there's a lot of people that I think we may or may not have. Tiffany Budgetnista, I'm not sure if many of you heard, but she's a friend of mine, Reverend Allens, who may come here in a later session and speak to you guys about 401ks, IRAs, investing and savings accounts and things of that nature. I think that stuff is extremely important. And I can speak about a little bit of that too, investing and stuff if you'd like. But in all reality, I think for me at least, I think the number one thing that anyone here on this call, or anyone I've ever spoken to, can do to impact their financial situation, to create wealth, to really just create generational wealth and really establish themselves, establish their family, is to get one really good, like just good paying job, right? Get a great job. A lot of people talk about, multiple sources of income. Multiple sources of income is great, but it's also pretty cool to have one source of really, really high income, but I don't know, for some reason, there isn't as much talk about that. And I think that is something that we can impact, particularly right now, in a unique way by investing in ourselves and participating in our own deliverance as it pertains to our financial situation. So I challenge us to try to do that, right? Where else is this applicable? It's applicable in a lot of ways, right? Like, how about, health and wellness? There are apps and such like MyFitnessPal that can, monitor your diets and help you with that stuff. There's Playbook, which is, these are low cost or free, which allow you to create workouts and stuff like that you can do at home. Like we can participate in our own delivery in terms of our health and wellness, right? Mental health aspects like Headspace and, meditation and thinking about ways to kind of figure out ways to make sure that we are keeping our mental space together too, because that's particularly important in pandemic as well, right? There's a wide variety of ways that and technological advancements that have allowed us to, better position ourselves to improve ourselves from a health and wellness perspective too. One more, how about spiritually, right? Some of us want to increase or improve our relationships with God. What better time than now, right? Like you have a little bit more time. Everything is virtual. Any church or any organization that did not have virtual capabilities probably has it now, right? You can listen to Pastor Allen on Sunday, and on Wednesday, if you need some help to make it through, you can listen to a previously recorded version, or you can listen to somebody else, some pastor in Texas, and just hear what they have to say, right? And these are all things that have improved drastically in this pandemic, right? Let's participate in our own delivery. Download the Bible app. If you don't have any time, you don't have time to listen to a new, sermon multiple times a week, download the app. Do one scripture per day. That can take you 10 seconds. So you're looking at me saying, I don't have time, like 10 seconds. Let's improve 10 seconds, right? Like let's participate in our own delivery here, right? Like let's invest in you and participate in our own deliverance. So number 3 here that I wanted to discuss before we kind of open up and have a few more, just more of a conversation is the concept of giving yourself grace, right? So once again, some of y'all might be looking at me crazy, like, Reverend Dean's son came in here and told us that it's the middle of pandemic. I have a bunch of kids. I don't have a job, but he's telling me that I'm supposed to come out of here as a millionaire and in perfect shape. And, I'm supposed to have read the whole Bible and, all that stuff. And that's not necessarily what I'm saying. If that's what you want to aspire to, I'm open to that. We can talk about that. What I would say is that if we can shift our mindsets and take this approach that we are being presented now with a very, very unique, perhaps once in a lifetime opportunity to invest in ourselves, to improve ourselves, and to get to a place that we never foresaw even being at this point in our lives. If we are waking up every day and going to sleep every day with this mentality or this focus on improving, on getting better, on being one step closer to our fitness, health, and wellness goals, our spiritual goals, our financial goals, or doing, one thing every day, to try to, make sure we're better positioned or a better candidate for a new job or for that new role in our current job or for that promotion or for whatever may have you, I think that we'll be better off. And look, where grace comes in is that there will be some days where you cannot do it, right? And the reality is that that's okay. But once again, if you are going to sleep and waking up every day with the focus and the thought that I will get better today, if 2 out of 3 days you get better, then over the course of a week, you're incrementally better, right? And then over the course of a month, you were incrementally better. Over the course of a year, throughout the entirety of the pandemic, you were incrementally better. You were significantly better than you were than you came in. You are in better shape, whatever may have you, are better spiritually. You are closer to getting that promotion. You are more equipped. You are a better candidate for new jobs. You are better equipped to apply to schools. Like, you have done something, and you are significantly better, all because you have decided to shift your mindset into one where you are going to participate into your own deliverance. And, you're focusing on it every single day, but you're also just managing that balance of knowing when you have to give yourself grace so that you can wake up and have the power to go ahead and do it again the next day, right? So in conclusion, kind of before we go into questions or thoughts or anything that you guys said, anything that you guys have, look, I think that from my perspective, if our objective here is to attempt to embrace uncertainty, to deal with these trying times, or these times that can be considered very difficult, and we've all been through it, right? We've been through difficulty, we've been through sickness, we've been through death, we've experienced it all here. It's been a tough time, don't get me wrong. But I do think that if we can shift our mindset into one where we are focused on, and we remember where our help comes from, if we are willing to, and we recognize that we're going to actually need to do something, right? If we're going to get things going, we can't just pray for it. We can't just say, God, financial blessing, treasure comes from the sky, that we're going to need to do something, that we need to participate in our own deliverance. And that if we're also willing to recognize, or we do realize that, I'm going to go 100%, but I will need to give myself grace at times, that I truly believe that we can come out of this thing better off than we ever were, in better position. We can come materially close to achieving our goals. We can be the best versions of ourselves. We can be, really, really living our best lives in the way that we never would have thought we could ever be. So with that, I give you, that's the framework. So thank you, guys. So I would say,
Indeed a word, Chris. Indeed a word. Those are definitely 3 pointers that I think everyone can take and actually apply them to their current situations. Knowing where your help come from, knowing who God is. You have to know who he is, and you have to know where what he has for you in store. So that whole thing you said about shifting your mindset, making sure that your mindset is positive, it really runs through that whole thing. Because if you know who God is, you know that he's going to bless you. You know that he wants good things for you. And I agree with you. You can't just allow and pray, say, yes, Lord, just send it to me. You got to give him a little help. He has to know that you really want it and you really need these blessings that he has in store for you. So I totally agree with you on that. And the last point you said about giving yourself grace, making sure that you are okay with understanding you're not going to be happy all the time. There are going to be some times where you have an issue and it's going to set in your soul, but don't let that get you down. Always be on the high note and the positive. So I definitely think those are some points to live by, to move by, and can really help us in this time. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions that were posed to the chat. All good words, but we can open it up. Feel free, guys, to unmute yourselves if you have some questions for Chris. Otherwise, I'll ask questions all day, but I want to give somebody else a chance.
Hey, Chris, it's Mr. Davis here.
How you doing?
I'm good, better than good, man. Thank you for that word, and definitely needed that after the year that we've had. So my question to you is, I think life often presents us with seasons, and sometimes those seasons are seasons of difficulty and great challenge. And what sometimes can come with that is a depressed, I can't do it type mentality. Number one is, have you experienced that? And number two, what have you done to overcome it and to get yourself back on track?
Sure, that's a good question. I think that, yeah, I have experienced that, and I do experience that. I think that for me, one thing about, everyone kind of knows me on this call to varying degrees, but for me, it comes, I mean, last year was it was just a tough year. I feel like every time you looked on the news, there was something negative going on, and it was just overwhelming. And for me, that ended up resulting in me. I mean, I'm just not on social media. I don't turn on my TV. I kind of try to block out the noise and set up, and I know exactly what I am focused on at the particular point. And I just try to stay in my lane and focus on that, because one of my personal themes this year was that I don't want to give anyone else the power to just impact my sentiment, right? Like I don't want to give anyone the power to impact how I'm feeling on a given day, right? Like I don't want to wake up at 7 a.m. and I'm happy as I could be because of my kids and my wife and my family and job. And then I turn on social media and somebody posts something, and then all of a sudden I'm upset and I'm going back and forth with somebody and like, or, do you hear this person said this? Like, I don't want to give anyone that power, right? So I'd rather just avoid, me personally, everyone has to do what works for them. But for me, being able to control my own mental, my own, self in that capacity has been very, very beneficial to me, right? But once again, things are, we all go through and there are difficult times, but, the hope is that, once again, knowing where your help comes from, that we all have some sort of background, and I think a lot of people on this call do, where you kind of know where to go. And at some point, whether it's a day or a week or a year or however long, you're able to kind of pull it back together and move forward.
And that's awesome.
Chris.
Thank you for sharing.
Chris, it's Reverend Allen.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming. You've done an awesome job. You said everything I told you to say, and so we're happy about that. But let me just see if you can touch on the subject, because you talked about the mindset. What are some great avenues or pointers or training that people could do to change mindset? Because I think, I hear my youngest granddaughter, she got a bike for her birthday and she got on it. And the first thing she said was, I can't do it. 5 minutes later, she's riding that bike with nobody holding her. But I think as we get older, we run into these blockades. And if there's some way to just give us something that would maybe help to change that mindset.
Yeah, so I would say two things, and once again, these are just things that work for me. But one, I think, is that I like to write. I create a lot of lists, right? I create lists of my goals and aspirations, and then I go and I actually look back at those lists over time to see what I've done and what I haven't done, right? So I have lists from high school about things that I wanted to do today when I was 30, 40 years old, which may sound crazy, but I actually have these lists that I can go back to. And I kind of check off what I've done or what I haven't done, or what kind of switched and what I did differently. But I think that, and I do that once a year, I do that pretty frequently. But why I bring that up is because I think that when you can go back and look over the course of the year and say, you know what, like I said I was going to do this and I did these 10 things and I completed all of them. Or 5 years ago, I said I was going to be here and I did that, or I'm past that. Or 10 years ago, I said I was going to do this and I passed that. I think that it gives you a level of confidence that, I can do anything that I put my mind to. Like I firmly believe that, but I also believe that for anybody else, right? Like I think that if you have an actual plan, if you have a game plan, if you've thought through things, that there really isn't anything that you can't conquer. There really isn't anything that you can't do. Actually, I did a TED talk called Conquer or Conduct last year, where I talked about what it takes to, become a conqueror and change your mentality and turn it into one where you really can set goals and, achieve those goals, right? But one of the main things it takes is, this significant plan, this well thought out plan. But if you plan accordingly, a lot of people decide that they want this promotion, but you've been at the job 10 years and all of a sudden you want a promotion. But 10 years ago, were you thinking about what it was going to take to get that promotion, right? Like, were you taking the steps? Were you doing what everyone else was doing? Were you having the conversations? Were you doing the right networking? Were you strategic about it 10 years ago? Like, a lot of these things don't just happen one day when you wake up and you decide that you want them. At least that's what I found in life. So to answer your question, in terms of helping that mentality, I think confidence is critical. And for me, one of the things that gives me confidence is being able to set goals and then knowing what my goals were, being able to go back and keep myself in check and see where I stand relative to those goals. And sometimes being able to look back and say, look, like I did these 20 things. Like anything I put my mind to, I can do. If I put my mind to it, because there's things I don't do, and I look back and I'm like, yeah, I didn't really commit to that. You know, I didn't really give that one my all. Let me try it again next year. You know, I think we all know when we gave something 100% or not, right? And I think that hopefully, you know, that kind of works for me, because I think the confidence is key. And I think that having those goals, being able to write them down, look back at them later and see where you stand, keep yourself accountable, has been very helpful for me.
Thank you so much, Chris. Again, I encourage everybody that's on here. Chris is a wealth of knowledge in all different areas. It's opportunity for us. And part of this investing in God, investing in you, is that we have to create this talk amongst ourselves. We have got to reach out to everybody we know, because everybody's got some bit of knowledge that we can use to better ourselves and to reach the goals and objective of making ourselves that prime piece of real estate, that prime investment that God wants to put his time into. So again, those that are on here, ask the questions. Again, I hope at some other time we'll get Chris back again and talk about some other things that he might think of after we're done tonight. It's important we get this information out and share it with one another.
So there was one question that came in. They asked if you could expand upon your personal theme a bit more.
The one that I mentioned regarding like overall, or mentioning people?
Yeah, I tried to get a little more detail about what specifically, but it's just they didn't respond yet to that. But they were just saying, can you just elaborate on his personal theme?
So I think that probably refers to what I said about not giving anyone the power to kind of, you know, control, you know, your emotions or anything on a particular day. I just think that, you know, on a day-to-day, obviously having a mentality like I spoke of, or, you know, during this call, can help you, I believe can help you achieve goals and, you know, advance yourself, whether it's professionally or in any other aspects that you're looking to, other areas of life where you're looking to advance yourself. But I think in doing so, I think that having control over your own emotions and your own, you know, mental on a given day, I think is very important, right? I think that a lot of people, you know, I'm sure that many people on this call will say that, you know, somebody comes into the room or calls them or texts them and says, did you hear about this person? Or did you hear about what went on here? Or what's going on social media? Or what, you know, for people, what this person posted, or what this person said at church, or whatever. Like there's a lot of noise in this world. Did you hear what Trump said? You know, did you like, but I think I've reached a point, and many of you may have too, where I just don't have the time to deal with all that. You know, I think that there can be a lot of noise and there can be a lot of distractions in life, and you may or may not have the time and the bandwidth to deal with it. If we're talking about trying to improve ourselves and trying to, you know, accomplish certain things, then you don't have time for everything, right? So for me, I don't want to give anyone the power over that time. Like I don't want to give Trump the, you know, the power to be impactful over whether I accomplish my goal for the day, right? And that, for that reason, I've kind of shifted that mentality and made that more of a theme for myself this year. If that makes sense.
Another question that came through, it's roadblocks are bound to come. How do you face them?
That's a good question. You know, I think, you know, we can all, I'm sure many on the call can provide guidance and stuff on these sort of things, but I think for me, at least, the goal or the objective, at least, is to treat roadblocks as opportunities, right? You want to, ideally, in most situations, you want to turn negatives into positives. In that TED Talk I spoke to you about, one of my points was about embracing roadblocks. And one of my college football coaches used to say that setbacks pave the way for comebacks. He was like 95 years old, and he would always tell us setbacks pave the way for comebacks, particularly when we were losing. But I think that the reality of it is that, you know, speaking for me personally, you know, I went to school and, you know, went there to play football and obviously for academics too, but ended up being injured and never really playing. And that was one of the most difficult time periods of my life, because I always felt like whether it was reasonable or not, I felt like if I put my mind to it, that I could accomplish anything. I might have a shot at the league, or I could do these great things, right? But that just did not pan out whatsoever, right? And the end result was just me junior year just laying on a bed for like a whole semester with, broken bones and barely able to walk, right? So I had a lot of time to reflect during that time period because there was nothing else I could do but reflect. But during that period of time, at least for me, I was able to rethink about where my trajectory in life, figure out what was important to me. One thing in particular is that, I grew up, my mom raised me and my dad was not there, but that was a period of time where I actually ended up basically forgiving my dad. Because I kind of harbored that anger for my entire life. Got my Uncle Sam on the phone too, so I've talked to him about a little bit of this, but like I kind of harbored that anger for my entire life. But it was that time where I was basically bedridden that I decided, you know what, like, life is okay. Like I have nothing really to complain about. There's nothing that I would change. Like I'm in a good school and, my mom is great and, she raised me well. What am I upset about? You know? So when getting back to that roadblock thing or, like being hurt in football was a major roadblock for me, and it was a difficult situation, but what it did do is that it gave me some time to think. It gave me some time to relieve a burden that was hanging with me for a long time. It also ended up giving me time to focus on school. Once I got hurt, I had by far the best grades I've ever had in my entire life. Like I really just did so well because I wasn't playing sports anymore. That was the first time that I wasn't playing sports. School was a lot easier for me when I didn't play sports. Like there's nothing else to do except do schoolwork and just hang out. So, I got great grades and I ended up getting a really good job after that. I could interview more places and talk to more people and do more networking, and forgave my dad. And so it didn't care. I wasn't just angry all the time. And I now look back at that as probably one of the best times of my life, being hurt and laying on a bedridden and not being able to do anything. Like that roadblock, that bump in the road, arguably was the most impactful period of time in my entire life, right? And I would not be here if I hadn't been blessed enough to be really, really hurt. So I think that, but I think that that's how God is. That's how life can be. And I think that once again, that is based on your mentality. Because I don't know that everybody would have taken it that way, But for me, I wouldn't change it all. I would get hurt multiple times if I had to, because it really, for me at least, it worked out. So.
And I would just like to add just a little bit to the conversation. I think it's so important to understand the system in which we operate in, and we operate in a capitalistic system. So understanding capitalism, and to kind of, I'm talking about basic economics, wants, understanding the difference between a want and a need, understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. So as you matriculate through this system, I think it's very critical. I think a lot of us, we matriculate through this system and we never really take the time to understand the system in which we're operating in. So, I just encourage everyone to really understand the system. And another point I would like to make is understand the history of this country. I think that's a very critical piece, understanding the history. And I would also encourage everyone to go back and just read the Constitution. I think that's a foundation of how this country was founded, and how capitalism kind of raised its head in this country, and the foundation of all of it. I don't want to go into details about it, but I highly encourage you to really understand basic economics and capitalism.
Well, Uncle Sam, I hope you plan on joining us for our last session in February, because we are going to touch on African-American history, the history of Africans in this country. So hopefully you are planning to join us for that when we put that one out, but we definitely will cover on that topic.
Yes, it's so important. It's so important.
I will say, I think first for me, I think one interesting thing about that is that when we think about capitalist society and whether it's a positive or a negative, one can have their opinions, but I guess the unfortunate reality is that's what we're in. So you have folks who want to break that down. Maybe that's the right thing to do. But in other ways, it's helpful to just think about ways to thrive in it, just because it is what it is. And one can debate kind of that, but for me, while I don't know what society will exist, and I do feel like I have some sense for the history, I think that what one can choose to do is just figure out a way to win in this thing, right? And I think that you kind of have to adapt and accept the reality and move forward. But I do definitely think it's helpful to know like the barriers that we are facing, the way that it is built. It's set up for certain people to succeed and certain people to not succeed and certain people to never succeed ever. But I think that having a sense for that and understanding that can help you kind of figure out ways to kind of move forward.
Yeah, and I agree, Chris. I think understanding the system and understanding capitalism will definitely, you can benefit from a system. Anything you get involved in life, you can't just jump into it without understanding the foundations of it. You can't be successful in it until you truly understand it. So you dabble in it, you can play in it, but if you want to be successful in it, you really need to understand the system in which you're operating in.
Awesome. Chris, one other question popped up about the TED Talk that you gave. Can you give the title of that again?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I can send you a link, but it's called Conqueror Conduct. What was the name? It's called Conqueror Conduct. So thinking about how do we turn ourselves into conquerors? How do we conduct ourselves as conquerors?
So for those who are not familiar with TED Talks, they are these short, inspirational sessions that ordinary people, if you have a story, you can give one. There's classes on how you can structure a TED Talk, which I think everybody should be able to do, should want to do, because it gives you the opportunity to be able to tell your story and encourage someone else. So I'm looking forward to sharing that link to that. Based on what we've learned from today, it probably will also touch our souls just like today's conversation did. So sure, when we post this message, we will definitely post a link to that session as well. Are there any other questions anyone might have for Chris?
Give me a stock tip.
GameStop.
Only kidding, man. Only kidding.
Like, please don't get him in trouble.
Yeah, only kidding.
We can talk on the side.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that GameStop.
I gave you stock tips, so you didn't listen to me last time.
Uh-oh.
No, I didn't.
Sharon, you had a question? You were saying something?
I was saying that was an interesting concept that happened with GameStop. And I think it's still playing out in the market today. What are your thoughts on kind of the big guy versus the little guy, I guess, if you can speak to that?
I can speak to that a little in some ways. But I think that I think it's just an interesting time that we're in our country. I think that what happened with GameStop is somewhat of a reflection of that, kind of like this populist uprising and this kind of pitching one person against another person. One of the main guys who from the main fund this guy Gabe is a guy that I went to a Knicks game with before the pandemic, and he's being vilified as like he's a 40-year-old guy who like works really, really hard and did well for himself, but he's kind of being vilified as like these rich, wealthy people who are taking over the world and trying to hurt the little guy. But at least, for me, he's just a regular guy who watches sports and tries to hang out like anybody else. But I think that we live in this kind of polarizing environment right now where it's newsworthy to kind of pit one person against the other, or one group of people against the other, and create this animosity. So that's where we are. I don't think that that's really what it is. I do think that I think it's good that, more people are drawn into investing and more people are interested in it.
Absolutely.
If it takes something like this to, I don't want people to lose money because this was a scary situation. But if this is piquing the interest of people in investing, I think there's disproportionate, Black people, there's some statistics around it, but we hold a disproportionate amount of our wealth in real estate relative to stock market. But real estate annualizes like 4% per year versus stock market annualizing like 8-9%. So over the time, we're just drastically losing money relative to our like white peers over long periods of time. Even if we had the same, amount of money, theirs grows significantly faster than ours on average, right? So I think that if this is going to pique interest for us in investing and learning about stock markets, and actually we talk about, Sam mentions understanding the system, understanding the stock market as a system, and understanding the game that you are playing, and trying to learn how to actually value companies, not treat it like gambling, then I think that this can be beneficial. Like, I think it's really good if more of us want to figure out ways to gain wealth and help our families and elevate our financial situation. So I think that that can be a positive, as long as people didn't lose a lot of money playing around at GameStop.
So that's one of our topics.
Well, no, I mean, so for me, it's understanding a little bit about exactly what you just said. Sure. We need to know where to place our investments. We've always, put our money in a little savings account, put it in a little sock drawer, whatever we've done as African Americans. We've not invested in the right types of things. And so that's why it's so important for us to have these types of conversations that you're having with us tonight, is to understand that if you have money and you're saving it and you're just putting in savings, you're not generating any wealth from that. You have to find ways to increase that wealth, or increase your territory, if I like.
No, I agree. Look, my mom's on the line, and she'll yell at me because she doesn't. I don't know if she trusts my financial advice, but she knows it all herself. She has it down. But I always I've talked to so many people about this topic of, for Black people, we feel like the number one thing we have to do is we have to own a house, right? And I'm not saying don't own a house, but I am saying that owning a house is not always the best decision for you, right? Like, and that for some people, when you tell them that, it's like the biggest thing ever. It was like, what do you mean? Like, my parents told me I had to own a house. Like, my dad, my grandparents told me I had to own a house. Like, owning wealth, Black, you got to own wealth. You got to have, it's great. But like, not all houses go up. Owning a house everywhere isn't necessarily a good investment. It may not be a bad investment, may not be a good investment at all. Like, on average, housing goes up like 4% a year, versus if you had just held the same amount in equities, you would have gained 8% a year, just on average, right? Obviously, stocks can go up, stocks can go down, right? But on the margin, or generally speaking, overall, you would be significantly better off doing something else, or almost anything else, more than owning a house, right? And I recognize that you need a place to live and stuff like that. And there was some power for us historically to owning our own, place, right? Because we were prevented from doing so, in certain areas. But, like, I think that when we talk about investing and trying to build wealth, that is probably not the best way to do it. And that's not something that everybody will typically say. It's something we're comfortable with. We get housing. Getting, buying a stock may sound a little more confusing or more difficult, or thinking about valuation or the terminology that people like to throw around things to make you confused. But none of this stuff is that complicated if we can dig into it a little bit.
So what's some things that people can do, or what would you suggest someone who's starting out, who wants to learn more about investing, or what's a good way to just dip your toe in the water?
Yeah, I think that one of the good things also about this pandemic is technology and stuff, or even just before this, is that you can open up these trading accounts for free, and even if you just put $100 in there, $50 or something, just there's something to actually owning a stock that makes you more interested in it and makes you want to learn more about it, and just makes you, I don't care if you have $10 worth of a stock, you're gonna be following that stock all day long, wondering if it goes up or down a penny, just because all of a sudden you have some skin in the game, right?
Right.
So I think that just getting in there, for something, I feel like some of the best stock tips come from people that just are in the world like us, who just, realize what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Like, how many people use Amazon, right? Like, Amazon was one of the best performing stocks last year. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that Amazon was going to do well in an environment like this, right? I can tell by how many boxes that show up that Jay purchases, right? Amazon was going to do well. Like, somehow it didn't take an expert to realize that they were going to do well last year, right? Or things like, I don't know, Peloton. I don't know if we have it, but people are familiar with it at least. Like, at-home fitness is probably going to do well because gyms are closed, right? Like, if you have any desire to work out, you probably need to do it at home, right? Video games did well. Like, just certain things just did well. Zoom did well. Like, you can get your MBA and your PhD or whatever in finance, but like, I don't know that any of y'all need that to know that Zoom probably did well last year, right? And it might continue to do well. So I think that just getting in there, using your own common sense, is a great start to doing this, right? And you can learn more, but I think that will pique your interest once you have skin in the game. And, you know, like I think that obviously there's books you can read and I can recommend certain things. There's one by Jim Cramer called Insane Investing in an Insane World. He's a Summit guy. So I think, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, he's a Summit guy. And he was kind of like a mentor of mine in some capacity throughout the career and in high school and stuff like that. But, you know, he has a very simple book that just breaks things down. Like none of this
That's the
stuff is
same guy that does the stock market, Kramer,
Yeah.
whatever. He has a
I wouldn't
show,
listen
right?
to all the crazy stuff he's saying because
Yes.
I wouldn't, you know, but I can't vouch for all that. But he does have a very simple book that breaks things down in a way that's easy to understand. It's one that I would recommend to anyone of all ages, you know, to just
Give the
dig
name
through
of the
and
book again,
understand.
Chris.
I think it's called Sane Investing in an Insane World.
Okay.
It was something I read, you know, a while ago, and it's definitely one that I've recommended to people.
Okay.
But it just gives you a sense for how, you know, institutional investors are thinking about it. Can kind of give you some confidence in, you know, feeling like you're looking at things the right way.
Got it.
And just add to what Chris said, I think in the market, I think a lot of us as a people, we want to get in and get rich quick.
Yeah.
Not a get rich quick game. It's a long game. So I just want to throw that out there because it's not something you're going to just jump in and expect to get rich overnight.
That's a very good point because last week I probably was messaged about GameStop every 2 minutes, you know, by somebody.
Right.
And I couldn't respond to everything. And people are like, hey, like, I mean, I don't even want to go through some of the stuff that I heard from people about. But
Right.
it was, and everything was along the lines of, hey, Chris, what do you think about this stock? I heard if I take $1,000 and put it in there in 2 hours, I'm gonna have $500,000. Chris,
Right.
what do you think? And I'm like, first, you know, and it's a lot. I got a lot of emails or messages that were something along those lines. And for me, the response was because it was overwhelming, and it was more of like, hey, do what you feel compelled to do, but this is not something that I would opine on, that I would be in personally. Like, I'm not going to prevent you. Do what you need to do. If you need to, if that's the way you need to learn your lesson, or that's what you need to do, please don't risk it all. But if that's what you need to do for the learning experience, do it. But for me, as Sam said, this is a longer term game. But this is a game where if you, just like we were talking about taking these longer term approaches, if you have an approach and a framework that over the course of, you know, 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years, you can be extremely well off just because you've done simple things, right? It doesn't have to be that complicated.
So
Yeah.
one last question for you, Chris, before we wrap this up. Is there any advice that you would give to those in their early 20s of what they should think about and want to do at this time while they're in their 20s?
In terms of like just career-wise and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm. Just any advice.
Yeah, I would take it. That's the way I would want to take it. Look, I think that this is going to be polarizing too, but I think that there is a lot of weight put on finding your passion, finding out what makes you happy, what you're passionate about, whether that's music, whether that's art, whether that's whatever may happen. I think that your passion is extremely important. I think it's great. But I also do think that there is certainly some value in some sort of financial stability. Once again, just like getting a good job and, you know, figuring that out. And then maybe you can do your passion on the side or after hours, or you can do whatever you want. Like if you like music, like, or you want to be a model, so you want to take pictures of yourself on Instagram, or you want to be a musician, or you want to sing, or you want to do that. Like, that's all great. And I want everyone to do that, but like those things are hard, right? Like it's hard to really, really win. And it can be a grind. You could be 30, 40 years old and you still haven't really made it. And it's just tough, right? So like, I do, you know, I don't want to say don't follow your passion, your dreams, because everything can work out. But like, I do think that there is some value in trying to find a job in a field that you do like, that you like enough that can make you financially stable, financially situated. A lot of us didn't come from a ton of wealth. Didn't come from a huge, you know, support network, you know, or a background where we can just afford to just hang out and our parents are going to bankroll us for, you know, a ton of money for all this time. We live on their couch, right? Like, you know, that's not how a lot of us grew up. So I think that trying to get the best, you know, let's participate in our own deliverance, right? Like let's establish ourselves financially because then at that point, once we're good, that means our parents don't have to take care of us. Maybe we can take care of our parents, right?
Amen.
And then maybe we'll have a little bit more time to deal with some of these passions and passion projects and work on those things and still enjoy your life, but at least taking care of that initial concern of like wealth and finances, that will not be a concern. Let's just be good to go there, and we can focus on the other things on the side in that free time.
Good advice. Definitely good advice, Chris. So we definitely want to thank you so much for coming on, and we may definitely bring you back again later in the year to truly touch on some finance topics,
Cool.
And of investing topics and that type of thing. We'd gladly to have you back. Just wanted to let everybody know what next week's topic is, and I hope everyone will also plan to attend. We're going to have Donnie DeMary from D3 Fitness Consulting. He's going to come in and basically talk about the disconnect with fitness. No, like everyone knows what you should do and why we don't do it. So he's going to basically talk about how do we get over that hump of knowing what to do and still not doing it. So it should be a very interesting conversation that we'll have. So I hope everyone will come and join us for that session as well. So I will be posting, there's a event for it posted on our church site. Please share. Like I said, we're going to have this once every Tuesday for the month of February, and then we're going to go into once a month for various topics. So we're going to keep this going all year long. So please come back, join us. Again, Chris, thank you so much. The words to live by, we're going to post this copy of the recording as well as a link out to Chris's TED Talk. So, Pastor, was there anything you wanted to close out on?
Again, we just encourage everybody, communication, talking, supporting one another. This is the year of making what seems to be the worst year or last year, make it into the best positive thing that we can do. The topic is what it is, investing in God. And that's what we really need to do by investing in ourselves. And it's encouraging because when we look at it, that's what God did when he created the heavens and the earth. He created them not for himself, but for us. So God's already invested in us. We just have to follow through and do some of the things that we're going to hear that people are going to express to us. Again, thank you so much, Chris. Listen, I owe you. You know what? You need me to come run around with the boys. I'll come run around. I don't know how far I'm going, but thank you so much.
You free tonight?
And again, hope to get you back again. Your mom's on there. She hasn't said anything. She's had a big smile on her face. You know what?
Something?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Sure. I just want to say, Chris, I'm proud of you, and certainly to see my brother here, Uncle Sam. So it's just great. And I think certainly investing in God is just awesome. It's an awesome theme for the year. And I just feel that we really need to think about that every day. He's worthy and he's worth investing in. So I've enjoyed the entire session and miss you guys much.
Missed you too.
Well, we're grateful again for everybody that came on. Spread the word for next week. Again, there's going to be a multitude of different things that our speaker is going to talk about. And in the third week, we're going to talk about education. We're doing something unique, and I know some people will have a problem with it, but the first time we talk about education, there will probably be at least 3 or 4 female educators that will be in and talk about what they see. And then later on in the year, I'm going to bring in all male educators and let them talk about what they see. And then we're going to try to fix what's going wrong with our kids in the school. So we really need to work hard to make some changes and invest in ourselves and to make everything we're trying to do positive for ourselves in the environment that we came out of. Hopefully the environment we're going into is going to be much better for us. Again, I pray God's blessing on everybody, and I pray that everybody gets through this COVID time and when we can all really see one another face to face. So with that, I wish everybody a great night, and prayerful in the morning when you get up. Be thankful.
Thank you. Good evening,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Good night.
You're good to see you, Connie. Okay.
Good to see you too.